Hey, we're Saints. Father Chris here. Welcome to our Crucifixional live stream. Glad to have you beautiful people with us as I do my best to rile us up this week. So for those who may not know, there is an NFL player, Harrison Butker. He is a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's a very obviously devout Roman Catholic man, and he gave a commencement address at Benedictine University in Missouri, and it created a firestorm. I mean, he's like, I don't, at the time that you're watching this, it may have cooled off a little, but when it happened, firestorm, he had to be trending all the hashtags. I mean, he had to be because everybody was like really all over it. And basically, the gist of his presentation, his commencement address, was to the students who were graduating, looking for a call out to them to embrace traditional Roman Catholic values. Now, I don't necessarily want to pick apart his commencement speech line by line. It's not really, I agreed with a lot of what he had to say. There were some things that I didn't agree with, exactly, as an Orthodox Christian, some of the Roman Catholic theology that he espoused is not my theology. So it's not really about him, nor about his speech. It's more about the ideas that his speech pushed into my mind, which I think are pertinent for you and I as warrior saints. Like, he made me think. And so whether I like or dislike is really immaterial. None of you care what I think anyways. But it's the ideas that he pushed that I thought were fascinating. And so we're going to go through this week and deal with the 5 of them that I found. The first being free speech versus commissioned speech. Day 2, the fallout from that commissioned speech. Day 3, womanhood and motherhood. What's appropriate? What's not? How do we do it? Day 4, the order that we find in worship. And lastly, the espousement or the acceptance, submission to traditional values versus the current, post-God, milieu that's out there. So let's start with day 1 and the idea of free speech versus commissioned speech. Now, here's something interesting. Look, he called me out personally. He doesn't know me. I've never met him. If someone said his name or showed my picture, he'd be like, who is that? But he called me out personally, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean. The rumble that went on after he said all of the things was free speech. He can't say these things. Look, the NFL suspended him indefinitely because they didn't like what he said. As we'll see tomorrow, the Sisters of Benedictine College, those I think they're the ones who founded that school, they didn't like what he had to say. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg and company went nuts. All the CBS, CNN, CNBC, the Today Show, they all went after him. I mean, it's like everybody was like, you can't say these things. And then, there's the other side that talks about, well, we have to be, able in our society to be able to speak and say what we want to say. So first, free speech, we ought to do it, right? And you know that when you do free speech, you're going to get some thunder. Listen to George Orwell, no less. Listen to these quotes we found. In a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act, right? He goes further. If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. Both from George Orwell, and I believe they're both from 1984. There's even a further quote from an Orthodox saint, Saint Anthony the Great, who says that there's a time coming, and Greg's going to throw this one up for you, there's a time coming when men will go mad, and when they see someone who is not mad, they will attack him saying, you are not like us, you are mad, or you're not mad, you are mad, you're not like us. And so that thing to the right within America to have free speech, really, I'm not interested in. I mean, the First Amendment says, say what you want to say, religious speak. I get all that kind of stuff. But really, is anyone in this country free to speak? Harrison Butker is not. He spoke. Whether you liked it or not, the NFL suspended him. I mean, like threatening his job and his livelihood. They're going to try to make him recant. We'll see if he does, right? The world at large went after him and said you can't speak freely. What I'm interested in, free speech is important. We've got to have it. But more so, commissioned speech. And what do you mean by that, Father Chris? I mean that as Christians, we are called to speak truth, what we believe as true, hard things that go against the grain of the society. Look, I'm telling you right now, he called me out because I said to Greg, we were talking about it, people are afraid to speak. I'm not afraid anymore. I've been afraid. I've always tried to make sure I say words carefully. I always want to be genteel, but also carefully so I don't offend because I don't like the backlash. Well, those days are over, son. You want some warrior saintness, that stuff ain't for you. I mean, it's here, right? All of what I'm saying is that Christ has commissioned us to speak the truth. Listen to what he says to the disciples. So at the end of the Gospel of Matthew, after his crucifixion, after his resurrection, he appears to them before he ascends to heaven, and he says, it's called, by the way, the Great Commission, Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. He, Christ, is saying, my boys, my 11, soon to be my 12, get out there and preach the truth. It may not be nice to people. They may not want to hear it. It may make them uncomfortable. But I nonetheless want you to preach that. And I want you to speak that so that people who are thirsty for it might actually find something to come to. Right? Do you follow that? And in fairness to those of us who are warrior saints, we do not, as Orwell said, always say things that people want to hear. But nevertheless, that's our duty to say them, even if we are, like Butker, persecuted for speaking freely, right? Like, look, in the early centuries of the church, Christians, there were a group of Christians we call martyrs, those people who spoke and lived their faith and were willing to do so even at the cost of their lives. And during the Roman Empire and beyond, sometimes in very gruesome and horrible ways, their lives were taken from them. Fed to the lions, burned alive, drowned, hung, crucified. I mean, you just keep going. Like, the things that they suffered and endured were horrendous. But they were unwilling to waver because they were commissioned by God to speak the truth. And that's a challenge for you and I today, right? Like, look, I do not know Harrison Butker nor his motivation. You can see what he did was clearly polarizing. Today, he has a whole army of haters, but he also has a whole army of new customers, right? So was his motivation to divide so that he might, I don't know, that's not my business. He's a Catholic man, let him deal with God directly and his own spiritual father. But it's a statement for you and I that, look, when we speak truth, there will be backlash because the world has gone mad. There are crazy people out there saying and espousing crazy things, and they want so bad to hold on to that they are willing to force someone in a land, by the way, of free speech, to recant. We're going to see if Butker does it or not. I don't know. But either way, that's their agenda. He was suspended on the way to being fired from the league. The nuns went after him. Whoopi went after him. Everybody and their mother going after this guy, right? Let's see what he does with it. You and I, however, as warrior saints, we've been commissioned to speak the truth. We don't have to be jerks. We don't have to be angry. We don't have to be nasty. We don't have to assault people. People have to make their own decisions. And we don't even need to judge them if they decide to live their life differently than we do. Nonetheless, it is imperative for us to find the courage and the strength to actually speak what needs to be spoken, right? I can promise you this. I've tried to do it before, but from this day forward, I'm all business, baby. I am fired up and serious about speaking the truth. I will hopefully do so, as I said, with gentility, but always with honesty and motivated with love for all of my warrior saints who hear it. For those people who decide, I don't want to live the way the world is living. I don't want to get lost in that chaos. I'm looking for the truth and the traditional values that bring joy and happiness. Maybe there are other ways for other people, but for those who are looking for it, I want truth, and I want this traditional and this value of peace, of life that only Christ can grant. And so if you're interested in that, join us, baby. I mean, look at our website, check out all the stuff that we're offering. We're doing everything we can to speak the truth, to do so unabashedly, with love, with compassion, but also ferocity and honesty. Love you. How was that for Rampage? I got a little sweaty today. I got all fired up. Well, it is 100 degrees where I live, so maybe that's it too. Love you. We're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about the backlash. All day today I said, let's get out there and speak the truth. There's some consequences that go with it. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about it. Love you. Keep watching. As always, keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.